Hi, I'm Brittney Ashley, your host of Breaking Norms, Building Dreams, your guide through this transformative journey in both business and life. This is your place crafted for dreamers, doers, or anyone who has been told they can't. Get ready as we challenge those narratives together. You're tuning in live to the United Public Radio Network, airing on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. We are streaming on all the popular platforms every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me for a candid and thought-provoking conversation celebrating your unique journey because you are worth it. Welcome, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Brittney Ashley. I'm your host of Breaking Norms, Building Dreams, and we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Get ready to escape the routine and join us in the next hour as we break norms and build dreams. I'm so excited to have Nicole with us today. Nicole has been a long life friend, which we'll dig into. But before we do, let me do a quick introduction who Nicole is. Nicole Powell owns and leads HALCON Marketing Solutions in St. Louis, based brand strategy and marketing agency serving clients nationwide as a certified brand strategist and neuro-marketer. Nicole has worked with renowned brands on the East and West Coast, including Disney, ESPN, and TV, and her experience extends to local small businesses where she applies her skills, elevating them into powerhouse, profitable brands. Thank you, Nicole, for coming with us. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited to be on the show. Thank you, Brittney, for having me. I sound way cooler on a piece of paper bio. So every time I hear it, I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah.
No, you've worked with so many amazing different brands, and we've known each other personally on different levels. So today's topic is really navigating the coaching landscaping and spotting the red flags, because Nicole and I that's how we actually met. We both hired a coach, which we were just joking before we went live that we're the most expensive friends that we've ever met.
Yeah.
But, experience is everything. Before we dig into it, Nicole, how about you introduce yourself more to the listeners and just tell them your entrepreneur journey?
Sure. So first and foremost, the most important role I'm in is I am a mama. So I am a mom to two little boys, Wade and Henry, 2 and 4 years old. So I actually have my business and really focus on my business 3 days out of the week, and 2 of those 5 business days, so to speak, I am with my 2 sons. So that's been really important, and I owe a lot to this business for giving me that flexibility to do that. So as you mentioned, Brittney, I own a full service marketing agency here in St. Louis, and kind of some of my experience working on both coasts for different brands. So kind of what led me to building this agency, which maybe we'll talk about later, was not I was not expecting it to be what it is now when I first started, was that, working with these bigger brands, the entertainment brands, obviously, and also other brands that you know and love that you probably open your pantry, some of those brands, was that they really invested a lot in research and brand strategy and all of those things. And then when my husband and I moved here to St. Louis, I worked for a local agency, again, working with bigger brands. But then as I met more folks in that small to mid-size business world, I really noticed that the focus on, really building a brand identity, crafting a brand strategy wasn't as important in those kind of marketing plans, and the owners weren't as familiar with how important it is in crafting that brand strategy. So then I started to think whoa, all this knowledge that I have, how beneficial it would be to kind of share that and build these big brand books for these small to mid-sized businesses to really showcase how awesome they are and how cool they are. So it started out as a consulting thing where it was just going to be me part-time as I conveniently pitched to my husband, and then it kind of transcended into a team and all of that. So that's kind of one reason why I decided to create this agency, but also I really wanted to do it in a positive uh, environment, really focused on culture and our values, which kind of start to kind of fade away the bigger you get. I'm like determined to keep it
Yes.
and retain it and have a positive working environment. So that's a little bit of my journey, I guess.
I love it. No, and I think that's kind of like one way that we've kind of connected
Mhm.
is that when we kind of met each other, we both kind of came from a bigger kind of companies, and we realized there was those gaps really in the market to really help small business owners to really understand brand and or just to elevate their business so much more that they could further than a corporate kind of company. So no, I love it. I, I remember reading, if you don't mind sharing, I know this wasn't on the list of
Oh,
questions,
no, go for it. Yeah.
where your name came from, the name of the company.
Oh, HALCON. So it's actually named after a mountain in the Philippines. So I am Filipina, born in the Philippines. And my husband, when the company started, my husband and I were really big outdoorsy hikers and all of that.
Yeah.
So it was a way to, I mean, we still are, but it's a little bit difficult with two little ones who could, you'd have to probably carry on your back, which it's not. We really love the outdoors, and so I kind of wanted to combine my Filipino heritage with that love of outdoors. So that's kind of where it
Love it.
came.
I
Yeah,
love it. No, I remember reading that like when we first met on your
yeah.
so I want everyone else to kind of hear the name, what the name came from,
Oh,
because I
cool.
think it means a lot to
Mhm,
you and the brand itself, and you're just so connected to it.
mhm.
With everybody listening, let's dive into our topic a little bit. Navigating the coaching landscape and spotting the red flags. So Nicole and I actually met, oh, is it 3 years ago? Maybe longer. I want to say longer.
It's longer. I think it's like 4 years ago,
Yeah,
probably.
4.5 maybe, because it's around the
Yeah.
time I started Creative Dynamics.
Yeah.
And the whole reason, like everybody's looking kind of for a coach when you're starting and or in the middle of it or wanting to elevate your business. And I came along this particular coach, and long story short, like we were just joking, it was a lot of money to find friends than really what we were looking for. We'll kind of dig in a little bit deep, but I thought what I would do today for the listeners is kind of break out what is coaching, what is mentoring, and what is consulting, because that is something that a lot of people kind of get confused on. I am a certified business coach, imposter syndrome coach, but I'm also a mentor. So I just want to make sure the listeners can understand what the difference is, and then we can kind of dig in a little bit deeper. So at the end of the day, coaching is really boosting your current performance and unlocking future potential. So you're always looking into the future. You're not going backwards, really trying to elevate it. And really at the end of the day, the coach should be asking you curious questions, then giving you advice. And then a mentor is just really nurturing long-term growth and career development and kind of pushing you, yes, forward, but then you're kind of, that mentor is kind of giving you life lessons, what they've learned along the way. And then a consultant is addressing specific challenges with expert solutions. So you're going to kind of see sometimes like coaching, consultant mixed together, but it's kind of good to know like the three different levels, how they kind of segment away from each other. Which I had to do a lot of learning as I navigated my coaching journey of the difference between the two. But overall, the reason why I went and found a coach was because I was struggling with price structure. And then I'm not too sure why you joined that specific coach, if you want to share why you joined.
Um, why did I join? I think the business, as I mentioned earlier, started out just me, myself, and I, and it was going to be sort of like this side thing in addition to my
Mhm.
full-time job. And I think it grew and evolved so quickly, and I needed that support and to feel like I wasn't going at it by myself. And you always want to grow and find new ways to grow. And there are certain elements that I'm not a master in, so I really wanted to lean on different people and figure out how they created their businesses and things like that, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I think like a lot of us, I think there was about 10 of us, give or
Mhm,
take, and kind of what it kind of looked like was like a mastermind. So that'd be that one particular coach, and we all come in together. And at the end of the day, it really ended up Nicole and I always touching base at the end of the call, being like, we didn't get anything really out of this. Did you? So
mhm.
we sit down and strategize together. And like I remember, like my sister-in-law would like looking back at it would be like, you were kind of like brainwashed in a way because you're so smart, marketing, business, all of these things. But when you worked with that particular person, it was like you completely left everything that you were taught throughout the years and then just kind of was listening to them. So my biggest issue was pricing. So how do I price? Where do I price? And the logic was just really price at 3K and the next person. And you know what? Before you know it, you're at 10K, which at the end of the day, that is an okay strategy, but with a strategy with no kind of strategy, really.
Right. Yeah. And I think everybody's different, and you're in Canada, I'm here in St. Louis, the our target demos are different, our businesses, although similar, are still a little different. So I definitely felt like, it would have been a good fit, maybe just not for us. Or it just was very, and it's not just this particular person, I've kind of seen it all around, very cookie cutter kind of, this is what you should do, and yeah, we'll get to all that.
Yeah.
I don't want to jump too far in.
And that's the thing is everyone's going to kind of see it when you're starting out as a new business. It's kind of like the shiny object of, yeah, I want to make 10K in a month. Yeah, I want to make 200, whichever. And it goes up from there. You're seeing all these coaches promise all these things. So when you're a new business owner, like that does look really flashy because at the end of the day, you are a sole proprietor and or whichever. It would be nice to make that kind of coin and not knowing that you need to go back to a 9 to 5 because you probably realize that a 9 to 5 job doesn't suit you. So it's just it kind of gets you in the door, but then maybe what we should talk about is like questions that others should ask before they kind of lead into just jumping feet first. Because I felt like I jumped in feet first without asking the right curious questions to see if they were the right fit for me, to be honest.
And ultimately, when you're starting out, and I mean, I'm not a coach or a mentor, so, and I never had one. So it's very difficult to even know what questions to ask.
Mhm.
So you're absolutely right. And ultimately, you can't, no matter how much we try to control it, right, with questions and all of that, we're never gonna know. We're never gonna know if the person we vetted is the right fit for us. But at least you can kind of go into it at least a little confident that you asked the right questions. So yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I've since that particular coach, I've been through so many different coaches,
Mhm.
uh, and they just didn't sit well with me, and I think at the end of the day, it's because, they didn't ask me enough curious questions to really understand my business model versus they're just kind of, "Oh, you do X, Y, and Z, just go to the States and find clients there. That will elevate your income." Or, "You know what you need to do is just set this base package price, and then that's that." Where it's like, "Well, why?" So maybe instead of just listening, maybe start asking more questions with that particular person of maybe throw in more of the why into the mix of why should I do it this way? Or also being true to your values at the end of the day too. If it's not sitting right with you, like when we were working with that one coach, like I felt like it just didn't I knew creating a website brand, like this one particular person was coming to me for all of the things. And I still quoted them 3K because that's kind of what I was told. And at the end of the day, really, that project could have been probably 6 to 7K because I was building the full system probably even more, to be honest, like the full thing. Um, and so like looking back on it, I'm like shake my head. I'm like, oh, I should know these things too, because my background is in marketing communications and system updates. But for whatever reason, I was just like listening.
Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult to when you're thinking about it that way because we're all so unique, and I think that's maybe it's not a question to ask, but really just an overall vibe when you're communicating with someone that you potentially want to work with. Like you want to make sure that the person you're working with, can adjust and has the expertise, and if they don't, can connect you to the right person.
Yeah.
Um, to so that if you do need something or it's very unique to your industry or
Mhm.
something happened that isn't something that 10 other people are experiencing at that correct time, that the
Yeah.
person you're working with is able to be flexible, and hear you out and understand your concerns and your challenges, versus kind of having that set mold, and then as the client you're having to adjust,
Mhm.
when there's certain things that you really are out of your control and you can't adjust,
Yeah.
right? So it's 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 definitely tricky, and I think overall, as entrepreneurs, and also we're moms and we're juggling these things, and parents, we want that community. um we want that community. Oh, I saw something pop up. That was so cool. So we want that community. We want people to lean on, and we want people to guide us. I mean, these are all on our shoulders
Yeah.
sometimes, we feel like. So that's why sometimes I feel like we push aside what our instincts are telling us because we also invested a huge amount of money, right? So you want to feel like, oh, this is going to guide me in the right direction.
Exactly. So Adriana just made a comment. It's misleading to tell a new entrepreneur that they can just benchmark their services across the board without explaining the nonsense. Bad coaching for sure. 100%. And like looking back on kind of the model that I felt like we were kind of, well, at least I was in a way, pushed away, pushed
Mhm,
down the path where I think I was still learning and maybe I was scared to ask the questions, but I think as I've evolved over time, I've been a lot more confident to kind of push back a little bit more. I'm still learning. I'm very soft-spoken, shy sometimes, but I'm trying to like break out of my own shell to kind of start questioning the coach or whichever I'm working with. And I actually have now found they actually don't call themselves a coach. They can call themselves a consultant. I call them a coach because I feel like they intertwine. They're really good at coaching and consulting with me anyways. With my neurodivergent brain of ADHD, they know how to like bring me back in. Like, no,
mhm.
Brittney, no. Which I'll be having them on the show in the future, which I'm super excited to bring them in on. But it just kind of helped me kind of understand the dynamic of kind of the entrepreneur space and the coaching space, mentoring, consulting space, because really at the end of the day, I just thought it was just one. And
Mhm,
really, it's kind of, if you start peeling back the onions, you're going to see that it's so much more there than we even know.
mhm,
So I think the biggest thing for anybody listening to spot some of the red flags is when you're not being true to your true values and you're kind of going against the grain. Maybe it's not a red flag for you for that particular coach, but maybe it's a red flag for you in that match of
right.
cohesiveness. Like you're saying, Nicole, like you have to have that synergy together, or else you're not going to really be making those momentums that you want to make within your business and or life, because you can have life coaches as well.
Mhm. And there's so many, even in the marketing space, right? There's so
Mhm.
many talented people out there in the world.
100.
Um, and there's so many different personalities, and it's all about just finding the person that's, works for you, is the right fit for you. So I think there's overarching kind of red flags that, nobody, even if you're in any industry, you should probably do. Um, one thing for me is kind of like the blamey, shamey kind of communication. So what I mean by that is, you know, if you're struggling, or if you're having a hard time, or you're not reaching certain goals, that the conversation is, well, well, you're not following our program correctly, or you're not doing this enough. So that's why,
Yeah.
you're not meeting your goals, and that could be the case. That could be true. That could not be the truth. Who knows? I don't know the
Mhm.
individual situation, but I think there has to be more of a conversation, more analysis, really getting down to the nitty gritty of what is happening. And that takes time, right? That you can't unpack all that in 15-30 minutes.
No,
Um,
100%. Yeah.
exactly. So I think this feeling like you're not doing it because you're doing my program incorrectly, you're at fault.
Mhm.
That's horrible. Like I'm talking about it right now and I'm like getting sad internally. Um, it's I think there has to be more customization, more interaction, because
Mhm.
ultimately I feel like that's what's going to really drive the success for both parties, right? Is to feel like we're both aware of each other's kind of perspectives and we're finding a middle ground that works for both of us versus like hammering, this is the way you're supposed to do it. You're not doing it. You're not comfortable. Too bad. You have to do it this way, or else you're not going to make any money. Like that kind of conversation. And I know I'm exaggerating, but I have seen like different
No.
versions of that.
Yeah.
Is scary. And I don't want anyone, especially a mom entrepreneur who is working so hard to build a business and juggle, to feel that way ever.
No. Yeah, 100%. And I feel that because there's a lot of good strategies out there. Don't get us wrong, to any of the listeners. Not every coach is bad. There's great coaches, mentors are completely out there. It's more or less just making sure that you listen to what they're presenting and then finding your own common ground. Like the going back to that coach, like how they're like time management. I wake up 5 a.m. every morning to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, no, thank you. I like sleep. I have a little one that wakes up throughout the night. I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. because you know what? I value 2 extra hours of sleep and then work a little bit later because I'm more productive at night than in the morning. So it's just like more or less taking things that are given to you with a grain of salt, and then also evaluating kind of the process of what they have given you. And that's the thing is, yes, you can follow things to a T and get to the 10K or whichever ways, but it takes time. Like they say, Rome was not built in a day, or is it in a night? I can't remember.
I think that's correct. I'm the worst with expressions, so I'm actually, if any of my team is watching this, they're probably laughing because I'm the worst person to ask if like the expression is correct because I have no idea, zero idea. But yeah,
I'm
you're absolutely right. I think there's so many great coaches out there, and if anything, you're gonna see the difference in how great those great folks are. Um, there's just a lot, there are a lot of coaches and mentors and things like that, so it's hard to kind of figure out who's the best fit for you. And that's kind of where my business and my kind of expertise kind of lies, and why I was so intrigued in working with, coaches, consultants, and mentors, is because it's a challenge for me as a brand strategist to find that, secret sauce, that story that's going to make that person stand out from all the other folks who are kind of saying the same thing. So for me, that's exciting, especially if I'm working with someone who I'm like, wow, like you're really in it to win it. I love your attitude. I love what you're saying. It only makes me feel better to be aligned with those kinds of business owners as well. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I might sound like a bit of a broken record of more or less just to make sure you really align yourself with your values. Because then it's exciting when you're starting a business. It's exciting, it's scary, it's all the mixed emotions. And sometimes you really you lose yourself a little bit in those emotions. Um, so at the end of the day, just trying to be true to who you are, because that also comes through in the branding piece as well, the presence of that
Mhm.
as you kind of craft and mold your story. I would say it's taken me a long time to really narrow in what creative dynamics is, but I'm happy I've been able to go through the journey, because I don't think it would be where it is today. So I think you have to kind of always take things grain of salt of like, okay, this is a negative experience, but let's turn it into a positive experience and revisit it in a different light. So again, most expensive friend right here, but
Yeah. And then when I look back, obviously I wasn't the best fit, or that person wasn't best fit, vice versa, right? We just weren't a
Mhm.
great fit. But, you know, I do look back at that time, and I think to myself, well, I wouldn't have done this if I didn't have that experience, right? I wouldn't have focused on this element of my business a lot more. So I think overall, there's always positives to every kind of relationship, right?
Mhm.
Even if it's just figuring out who you don't want to work with anymore, that's a huge positive. Um,
Exactly.
but I definitely understand the value of a coach and a consultant and a mentor, especially in this cutthroat kind of insane world we live in. It's always nice to know that someone has been through it and has your back, and can give you that guidance. Sometimes being a business owner, it's a lonely world because you can't necessarily touch base with your team about the things that keep you up at night.
Um,
Um, so
yeah.
it's nice to have somebody to talk to who's been through it.
100%.
Mhm.
Like you're just saying, it is lonely because there's certain things you can or cannot tell team, and or you're
Mhm.
just sitting there maybe up till 1 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out, I don't know, something bookkeeping wise. This just came into my head for whatever reason, because we were just talking about bookkeeping with somebody else. Like it's those little things that kind of get you wrapped up. So having those moments to be able to just talk to somebody, it's just kind of like when you're going to go talk to a counselor in a way. It's just a safe place to kind of navigate through your feelings and emotions and get you to the bigger picture.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask you a question, Brittany, if
Yeah.
that's okay. Did you feel like, your experiences with coaches, is that's what kind of motivated you to become one yourself?
No. Yes and no. So
Mhm.
overall, like with working with a team of great women, I've just noticed a lot of them were suffering from imposter syndrome, not thinking that they're good enough,
Mhm.
which just was like, why? You know how to do administration, you know how to do tech or all the things. Like I didn't bring you onto the team for a reason. Like you kill it. But every time I would match a VA or OBM to a client, I would have like a ping of like, "Oh, Brett, I don't know if I'm going to do well." And it's like, "Hmm." So it just kind of started like was interesting, and then it kind of like to be a good leader too, you're always wanting to look at how you can, um, not I don't wanna say better yourself, but in a way better yourself when you're leading a team of I lead between 10 to 15 women, it kind of fluctuates, and so I wanna make sure I'm asking those right curious questions when they're stuck versus just going in right into the answer piece, because I find that empowers them more as individuals to really conquer what they're set out to do. And I really think everybody's super talented and have their own strengths, and that sometimes we forget to give them those space to kind of think about it. I know when I work with my consultant coach, I know a lot of the answers. And it's funny whenever we have our chat because I'm just talking constantly. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, that's what I was going to do. And they're like, they start laughing at me because they're like, did you really need to have a call? I'm like, not really, just chat.
Yeah, sometimes it's just nice to say what you think you're gonna do, and then the other person go, "Yeah, okay." So then you don't feel like crazy, like, "Okay, someone else thinks that this is the right move. Okay,
Right?
great."
Yeah. So it definitely was a combo effect. Experiencing kind of like the bad, but then also seeing what the team needed. And then the more I started doing it, I'm like, I really love it. So my combination is more coaching, mentoring, consulting in a way. I really like to help business owners build those foundational businesses, but we have to kind of get in the root of it, of who they are too, to understand the flow of where they want to be in the future.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
I had to ask you that question.
Oh,
I
no,
was, like,
you can
curious. I
ask.
feel like I've never asked you that question, which
No.
is nice. so odd. Yeah.
Ask away. No, seriously, ask away. It's open conversation. We're already at the midway point. For those who are just tuning in, you're listening to Breaking Norms, Building Dreams. We are live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. I can't believe we've already been in 30 minutes of this.
Thank
So
you.
our listeners, if they want to comment and ask any questions, they're welcome to. If you have any questions for me, Nicole, that you think of right now, you're always welcome to send them my way. I have a question for you.
Sure.
In your opinion, what are the motivations or factors that lead some individuals to become a coach for financial gain rather than generally helping people?
Okay. Well, I think that's a great question. I think one of the reasons why maybe someone would go into the coaching space and it's purely for the financial gain versus really serving and helping is I think a lot of the landscape, not overall, I wouldn't say a majority of the landscape, the marketing message is very fixated on income levels.
Mm-hmm.
So um, it's I earn this every month and
Yeah.
you can earn this every month, which is fantastic. More power to you. Probably slightly jealous that you're earning that much.
Yeah.
So I am all for and in support of folks that are absolutely doing it and killing it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I think, and you can probably say the same thing, there's so much work and there is a lot of commitment that goes into doing this, right? So it's not just showing up for a Zoom workshop and then clocking out. And the expectation of a lot of your clients is that you're with them in this journey, that you're available, that you're willing to share your expertise. So I think a lot of the cool stuff is marketed along the income along the lines of the income. So I mean, who wouldn't want that? Or work, X amount of hours and make this amount of money. Who would not want that? Seriously, right? Especially if you're, a working parent or trying to get out of your corporate job. So if you approach it from that lens of I'm gonna do this purely for the financial gain, but don't necessarily take in the time and have that emotional investment in your clients, that's going to show.
Yeah.
And it's going to be harder for you to get those referrals and to build your business, which is essentially what you need to do in order to meet those income numbers that people are marketing to you. So I think a lot of the cool stuff is highlighted, but not the dedication and the hard work. And I mean, you've gone through all that schooling and like all this training. So I think that's it. I mean, it's the same with my industry, right? If I said, you could own a marketing agency and it's going to take you 1 week and you can make X amount of money,
Yeah.
but I'm not, you're not sharing all the hard work and the issues and the headache and the sleepless nights and worrying about your team and all of that stuff. So I think I would have to say that the marketing of it all, of kind of some folks marketing where it's like easy.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's funny that you say that because you just made me think of one of the coaches that I hired. Another one. I believe coaches need coaches. I swear by it.
Yeah, for sure.
He's a coach. But this particular coach, because they were sitting down, we had 1 hour session, and I just felt like they weren't listening to what I was saying. And they're like, oh, well, you own an agency. You know what? You know what you should change your bio to? That you make X, Y, and Z. You're going to start getting clients that way in your coaching business. I was like, but that doesn't sit well with me. I don't like it, just does not, no matter what I try. I was like, no, I can't. Like it just, no. And I remember walking away with it. And I even had this discussion too with Lindsay, my now coach and mentor and all the things. And they're like, no, if it doesn't sit well with you, then why are we doing it? So no, scratch it. Let's make sure we're in alignment of who you are and what you want to do. And I know that they also don't agree with that as well.
Mm.
It's just it goes back to values again. I think you need to really go dig deep sometimes of thinking of why you might be advertising it that way. And if you're okay with it, cool. But for me personally, it just never has sat well with me even till this day. Like
Yeah.
it gives me, I don't know why, anxiety, and I don't want to make those promises to particular people that they can get to those numbers because
Mhm.
it does take a lot of time. It take yeah. So,
There's so many things behind the scenes attached to those numbers, um, that we don't know about.
mhm,
Um, we don't know if that person, like even for me, like we don't know if that person you're comparing yourself to or want to be has like a full-time nanny and they're able to work around the clock. Or
mhm,
you don't know if that person has had a long list of like clients down the pipeline that have just converted. Like you don't know if they have connections and have all these. There's so many things that you don't know. So one, just marketing the number
yeah,
and not marketing anything else, just marketing the number. I say it's kind of like a lazy way to do it because you're more than that number, right? There's so
mhm,
many other things you can offer than that. And two, I think it's kind of that whole social media thing where it's like, I'm here in my beautiful house, but then you don't really know what's going on behind the
behind
scenes,
the scenes,
right?
100%. Yep.
Exactly.
Like
Um,
what, Adriana said, "Not everyone will resonate with your money goals or achievements. It doesn't make sense, and it can be cringy."
mhm.
100%.
And
Yeah,
there's so many other goals that are not attached to money,
exactly.
and it doesn't have to be money centric all the time. Um,
Yep.
but that's
I
the
think
easiest sell. This is that you can make seven figures. Heck,
yeah,
if it were that everyone would be making seven figures, right? If it were that easy.
exactly, right? Do you have any kind of advice to give anybody who's listening if they're facing similar challenges, if their coach wasn't a good fit?
Um, so I definitely would recommend reaching out to your inner circle,
Mhm,
um, or other folks that you look up to. I'm part of a few business kind of groups here in St. Louis locally. I have clients who I value their opinion, kind of ask around, like, who do you work with? Like, why do you like working with them? I think getting that perspective from a client is huge. So I always like going that direction. And also, like, what is it? You have to also understand yourself. What are you looking for? Like,
mhm,
what are you looking for? Someone who has, the financial background to help you more from a financial standpoint, like how to structure your business? Are you looking for someone who is going to help you with mindset blocks like imposter syndrome? Are you looking for someone who is in a particular industry that you're
mhm,
in? So there's so many folks and very, very talented people out there. But I think going in blind and not knowing what it is that you need in
mhm.
order for you to feel fulfilled and in order for you to get to the next level of your business, you're already starting in a bad spot because then one, you'll easily be like, okay, that sounds great. I'm going to hire you. And you don't necessarily know what it is that you need to look for.
Yeah,
Um, so I think that would be my biggest advice is uncovering and unpacking who you are first, some of
yeah.
your strengths, some of your weaknesses, where you want to grow and improve.
Mhm.
Go out there and find someone who'd support you the right way.
I love that. Yeah, that's true. I think, like, maybe taking a step back and kind of reevaluating of why do I want to hire X, Y, and Z? Do I need X, Y, and Z? And really mapping out and making like a kind of like a journal, I guess, of like,
Mhm.
because I always tell our clients, like, what tasks do you want to offload? And in a way, it's kind of what do you want to offload to your coach? Um, Thinking of where you're struggling with. And I feel like a lot of people are scared to talk about their weaknesses. And I want to challenge everybody listening that once you know your weaknesses, you're laughing because then that's where you can kind of hone in and really dig deep and move it to the side. Everyone has a weakness, but we can turn those into opportunities in different ways and strengths as well without us even knowing about it. So like imposter syndrome, for example, that's a big one that everyone really suffers with. I know I have my own imposter syndrome as an imposter syndrome coach. It's funny, I had to go through my own coaching course to figure out that I had imposter syndrome.
I have imposter syndrome.
It's
So
the
we all
fear of being found out that you're not good enough, but that's kind of
you are, which is the interesting part, right? Like finding out what that you actually are, right? It's kind of interesting.
yeah, that's kind of the whole premise of like the show is that everybody and anybody is all worthy of whatever dream, passion that they want to pursue, and that you just need to really be take that jump and just claim it.
And I think, what I've realized in, working with coaches, like having coaches, is that it's all work. You have to work too. There's no magical solution. There's no magical person that can deliver you a nice package that says, this is, you do this, you can sit back and relax and you are going to achieve your goals, right? So, there's a certain level of accountability and
Mhm.
acceptance that, hey, you have to meet people halfway, if not the whole way.
Yeah.
And that, this entrepreneur thing, a lot of the marketing that I see too is that it's like easy. Oh yeah, like, work 10 hours and make all this. Like there's nothing wrong with hard work and I'm all for it.
You can shed some light on that as a brand strategist for those listening, as entrepreneurs, because I know that they may work with certain people
Mhm.
that, like, maybe it's a, I don't know, an agency looking to redo their brand. What kind of recommendations would you have for them?
For the coach, say
Like,
that again, Brittany.
with the coach and or, like, just overall, like, they maybe were working with a coach and they're rebranding because at the end of the day, a brand sometimes really is connected to you. Like, the coloring of this whole show of this light teal blue, like, I love this color. Like, if you come into my house, it's everywhere.
Yes.
It's resonated into my brands in different areas.
uh, yeah, absolutely. So my number one, I actually spoke at an event this past week.
So
And one of the questions was, there's a panel, and one of the questions was about, like, how do you market your business? Do you DIY? And I kind of stayed quiet, right? And then one of the panelists was like, I feel like Nicole would know about this question. And I joked, I'm like, how much time do you guys have? Because there's so much involved with, branding and marketing. But I think the two things that I would want anyone to walk away with when they're thinking about rebranding or branding their business is, one, really understanding the target audience beyond like a superficial level. I think, the best companies, the best brands are folks that understand their target and their audience
mhm.
psychologically, their fears, all of those things that are unspoken that they don't blast out on social media or share with the world. Um, and that takes a lot of work. That
Mhm.
takes interviews, that takes market research, that takes a lot of work to really understand who you're talking to. And if
Mhm.
you don't do that, then essentially you're going to just say what everyone else is saying around you. And that's when you kind of get lost in the noise, right? And to kind of go along with that is, what is it, from whether it's values, whether it's how you do business, your background, like what is your secret sauce? Like what makes you different than other people that are out there? Like that's what you need to hone in on. And
Yeah.
that's why kind of this replicating of processes and structures when it comes to any kind of business, right? And just saying, okay, this is packaged. Okay, I'm going to pull that and just like put my face on the picture and put my colors on it and then repackage it. That would be great, right?
Yeah.
Um, but there's so much. It's such a busy and noisy market. If you're not finding what is unique about yourself and your business, then you might as well just kind of put someone else's logo on your business brand and or go on with a franchise, right? Um,
Mhm.
it's really important to understand your target and also to understand yourself. Like, what is it? What do you have to offer? Um, oh, great, Brandon. So what do you have to offer that is unique? Um, so let me give an example. You know, a coffee shop, right?
Mhm.
I own a coffee shop, and I'm going to market my coffee shop. So what is the superficial thing there? Oh, people, I'm going to attract my target audience as people who love coffee.
Mhm.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
every coffee shop in the history of man. Like, duh, that's your target. So I'm just going to talk about my blends. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk. But essentially, people are going to go to your business, frequent your business, go to you because they like you, because you stand for something else. You give them an experience, right? So based off of where you are or your target location or demographic, like, what else can you say about the experience of your coffee?
Mhm.
What else are your patrons looking for outside of just a cup of coffee that they could get somewhere else? So it's really kind of just keep shoveling through and digging deep and understanding that. And that kind of transcends into the coaching space, because there are so many different kinds of coaches out there,
Mhm.
but also there are a lot of folks saying the same things.
Yeah. And it's also like you're saying, really narrow in and figure out what makes you unique and
Mhm.
what makes you different. So it's
Yeah.
taken me such a long time to figure that out. Sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. And I think and just
It shouldn't.
great.
It shouldn't.
You don't figure it out overnight. It'll take
Mhm.
time. It's also brands evolve. And so the biggest thing for us anyways is always giving back to the community.
Mhm.
That's not usually normal for a virtual assistant agency to do. And so I've always put, instead of giving gifts, I put back into charity. So it's like how, and then like there was, oh, what are they? There's a company here that install fridges. If your fridge breaks down or comes in and fix it, they would go out and buy a full thing of groceries to come in once they fix the fridge. So it's like the little things, like how can you be different? What makes sense to you? What also, um, what's your why? Like,
Yeah.
why did you start? What makes you unique? Like all the things.
And it also has to be authentic,
Yes.
right? So just because the Bombuses of the world are saying we're going to donate X amount for the
Yeah.
socks, if you're not, if that's not who you are, if, and there's, I mean, whatever, to each his own or her own, right? Don't just say, okay, my next marketing campaign, I'm going to be all about giving to the community.
Yeah.
But that's not, it's disingenuous, right? So,
Being authentic of who you are. Like for me, like I volunteer a lot with our services for like social media. For
mhm,
I just started with Women Lead for Change in Canada, and so I'm doing that. There's different things that you can give back to the community. It doesn't mean money, but everybody's completely different. But like you're saying, Nicole, like you have to really dig in and just don't kind of, because there's companies out there like I creating this company and X, Y, and Z is going out back to the community. But it's like, well, why? Why did you do that? And my why is because it drove me bananas when I worked with corporate and they had all this money or in tech and they would not give back to the community. So um, I'm always about like, let's listen to our clients of who they want to get back to. Not me, actually. It's not me. I'm giving it back in their name.
mhm,
Um,
love
but yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's totally you. That's who you are. I can
yeah,
vouch for that.
yeah,
So this is very authentic. Yeah. Oh,
right.
yep.
Um, let's see. Oh my goodness. By the way, it's so cold here.
Oh,
Just a
it's
little,
too.
yes. I was just listening to when I was dropping off the kiddos, and they're saying Canada has apparently surpassed the coldest out of the world.
Oh,
What
yeah.
been hitting like Arctic weathers, and been so. That's why I have like my big like comfy sweater on and all the things, and the heat probably get the bill next month
I
and
know.
fly up in here because it's so
I know. The other day, so I'm training for a race. So not yet. Yeah, yesterday. It was yesterday.
Yeah.
It's like -4 degrees here, but I'm like getting my gear ready. I have my hat on and my gloves on, and I'm like, I'm gonna go for a run. My husband's like, it like feels like it's -22 out. I'm like, I can do it. Don't doubt me. I'm like, don't doubt me. I can do it. So I roll into my car and I put my gloves on in my car, and I'm like, my gloves are really cold inside. If they're cold inside, then they're not gonna keep me warm. So then I just like got out of the car, went back in. I was like, I'm not gonna go for a run. It's too cold. Great idea. That was a
You
great
thought
idea.
about it. You
Yeah,
made the process to the car and back.
I
That's
mean, I was hyping. You should have seen me right now. I was like hyping myself up in my. I'm gonna do this, and then nope. Maybe lasted 2 minutes outside. Went back.
that's so funny. As some of the listeners might have picked up, Nicole's also a mom. Maybe we can dive into how you find juggling momhood and
Mhm.
running a marketing
Oh,
agency.
sure. So it kind of again goes back to values. So
Mhm.
I kind of looked at, and I just want to have a disclaimer. I'm still figuring this out. I'd love to tell everyone here that I got it,
Know how to, yeah.
nailed it. No, it took a while, and I feel like I'm still trying to navigate what this whole thing will look like. But I really had to outline what was important to me, what were my values, and then make those non-negotiable. So
Mhm.
running was very difficult to get back into my schedule. So everything kind of took precedence over running. So I never ran, right? And then I would just complain about how I never run. But then I really started to look at running as more of like a brainstorming session where I think about my business and like come up with ideas. So then I reframed it so it was tied to work in a weird, bizarre way.
Yeah.
And then I started to run again because I was like, well, but this is my brainstorming time. Can't not include this in the schedule. So I include it in like my work schedule as like a work
Yeah.
thing. Um, and then, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, 3 days out of the week I'm working, then two I'm with my kids because I kind of made it a my own goal or priority that I was going to work and also spend a little bit more time with the kids than normal.
Mhm.
Um, and I think for me, and it took a while because I did have a lot of, all the guilts when I first had my children. Am I doing this right? Should I be doing this? Why that? And I realized like working made me better
Mhm.
mom. Um, and that's okay. It's okay to want to work.
Yeah.
I think I really applaud and I am in awe of stay-at-home moms, like, really. I have 2 days and I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm tired," right?
Having
So I'm like, "Holy cow." So there's a the super women, right? Um, and I think for me, when I started to just be at home all the time, I started to feel like I was a little bit more irritable, like, I was like so, it's okay, and I was so hard on myself in the beginning that, is there something wrong with me that I don't wanna be at home?
yeah.
But
And I think that's kind of, if you look at society today, it's kind of for women who want to be entrepreneurs or 9 to 5 or whichever, and also like wearing all the different hats, momhood, all the things. I feel like it's like you damn if you do, damn if you don't.
mm,
We're always thinking that we're on the right track, and then all of a sudden we're shifted gears into something else because something else has come up into the waves of no, we can't do X, Y, and Z because you know what? This is how we do it. Like, what was it called? Oh my goodness, baby led, like that stuff scares the bananas out of me.
what is that? What is
Baby led feeding. So you would give them
oh,
instead of like baby food, you'd give them like what you would eat for dinner, and you just put it on their plate. And yeah, I don't know if you did it. I tried it with rye, um, and so it was just kind of very in a way anxiety driven.
oh
You're
boy.
kind of like learning as you go as a parent because at the end of the day, you're like always told what you should be doing, but really we're all learning as we go. And I think at the end of the day, you just need to listen to yourself and give yourself grace. Because I know I couldn't really I was doing it where the kids would be home and I'd be working because we didn't have any care. So I was going bananas.
Yeah. And I think something you just said about, we're all learning, I think that applies to everything, right?
Mhm.
Including your business. I think the expectation and the pressure we put on ourselves, whether it's when we're hiring a coach or starting a
Mhm.
business, is that we're just going to miraculously have the answers, or someone's going to provide us with the answers that we've been needing. And
Yeah.
it's all a process, and you're always like learning more about yourself, every decision and every step you take. Um,
Mhm.
and we do joke that you're like my most expensive friend, but
Yeah.
look, worth every penny, right? So we wouldn't be here right now if it weren't for that experience. So um, everything is just learning and giving ourselves grace, which you mentioned earlier, which is
Yeah.
difficult.
It's hard. I feel like when I did work like the 9 to 5, when I before kind of I still did this on the side. I thought I can juggle the two, and I just felt guilty dropping off my kiddo to care, and I had to drive 3 hours away. And then I felt guilty. I was 3 hours away. What happens if there's an accident? I can't get there fast enough. Like it's like a spiral effect, to be honest. I feel,
Mhm.
and so what I've been trying to practice with myself this year is give yourself grace. So if you don't maybe say land that client, or maybe you are struggling with something, try to remind yourself to give yourself grace and really take maybe a step back and start asking yourself some questions, and then kind of then re-step back forward into it, because I find it's a busy world out there and we're constantly kind of thrown in sometimes. So if you remind yourself to give yourself grace and extra space, I think really then you're going to come back into the place that you need to be a lot more powerful.
Well said.
Yeah.
See, that's why you're a coach, see? You have the wisdom. You got the good.
Uh, Yeah, well, we're almost nearing the end here. I'm so excited that you came on the show, Nicole. I would love to have you back on the show and we can dig in to really any kind of topic you really want to share. But for our listeners listening, please let us know kind of maybe certain topics that we can come in and bring. Marketing wise would be probably helpful for some. But yeah, let's just take a minute and thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you to the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Next week, please come and join me for Nadine. And we are actually talking about parenthood, motherhood, the balancing acts. Nadine's actually also a life coach. And we actually have discussed that Nadine will come in every month in between different segments. So please come in and listen, bring your questions. If you are a parent, mom, we're happy to further dive in. So with that, until next time, remember your journey is unique and your worth is unquestionable. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Everyone.